Yeah, so crazy stuff about Earl Thomas being out. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about his replacement a lot, DeShon Elliott, and you notice that he's not that big of a name. By the way, I literally called him his replacement as opposed to DeShon Elliott. I'm going to talk about Elliott. I'm going to talk about that for a second, and then at the end I'll sort of talk about the decision as a whole. But I want to get into the film study right away because I think Elliott's an interesting player. He was a sixth round pick. This is his second year, and he's only played in 40 snaps in his career. So it's largely just because of injury. But I think it's interesting to note that, in a team that's contending for a championship that likes to play a lot of cover one, their starting free safety could be a complete unknown, which is definitely a wild card. But, he has played in some snaps, and so I'm going to try to, from what I've seen, I'm going to do what I can here. One of the things that is very clear is that he's just not Earl Thomas. I mean, Earl Thomas has incredible football IQ. Obviously, Elliott, he's a very young player. He doesn't quite have that just yet, and he hasn't really gotten up to NFL speed just quite yet. Like on this play, it's going to be a cover three zone, and there's a receiver running over the middle. And on this play, Elliott is actually playing the strong safety, so he's in the middle of the field. He's the one in the white circle. So that's the zone he's going to be covering, the zone that's second closest. It's in the middle of the screen, closest to the bottom of the screen. And once this play starts, notice how much he moves closer to the bottom of the screen. He's running in that direction, and his feet are kind of turned in that direction even more so. The reason for this is because of the halfback. He's keeping an eye on the halfback who's running out to the flat. He's concerned, hey, maybe that's going to be where play is going to be. But at the same time, he shouldn't really be worried about this too much because he has a teammate to his right, to the bottom of the screen. So that's the guy who's going to come up and try and make this play. So Elliott needs to just hang back, and he needs to look around and realize what's going on because there's another receiver trying to get into a gap in coverage to his left or to the top of the screen. Positioning is everything as a safety, and Elliott just put himself out of position right here, which made too easy of a throw from Baker Mayfield. And that's just something that he's going to have to work on. He's going to have to not make those mistakes. And it's difficult for a young player to not make those mistakes, even though it seems like a small thing. This next play will really show what I mean. It's going to be a cover one play. And again, Elliott is going to be playing the strong here. I also do have a play of him playing free as well. So it's not just him playing strong. But anyways, what's going to happen on this play is that it's going to be they're going to basically be trying to beat this coverage. We're going to have a receiver run deep just through Elliott's, zone of coverage. And then we're going to have another receiver kind of run straight up and then get into that area. And the idea is that he could be open. And if there is someone covering the middle of the field, which would probably be Elliott, then he's moving out of the way. But again, notice how well this works. And notice how out of position Elliott gets. He is trying to take away the middle of the field. So, you look over there, the receiver is open, clearly, and then you look at Elliott, and he's just completely far away, and he's just now noticing that the ball is going in that direction. So this is not a great play from Elliott, but I find what's interesting about this is that, this isn't something I'm like, oh, look, Elliott's stupid. Look at how dumb of a decision Elliott made. It's fine. It's what a lot of safeties would do. But it's not what Earl Thomas would do. And even look at Earl Thomas on this play. Despite the fact that he's further down the field, he's reading this play quicker than Elliott is. This isn't even really his role so much. It's more so that, Thomas is just in cleanup duty. But, he sees what's going on. And so he's going to, he breaks down quicker than Elliott does. And he actually would have gotten in position quicker than Elliott did. Elliott was actually the one who made the tackle. But that's just because he was already closer due to the positioning. And so that's kind of my point, is that I don't think Elliott's dumb. I don't think Elliott's bad. I just think that he's no Earl Thomas. And is it unfair to compare DeShon Elliott to Earl Thomas? Of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, Earl Thomas is the kind of guy where he's just going to walk into Canton, he's going to sign his name, and they'll give him his bust. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. And he's still playing at a high level. He's not washed up. People think he's washed up. He isn't. But clearly, Elliott is not as good as him. And again, I don't think that he's a terrible player, but I do think that there's going to be more problems, and the Ravens aren't going to be as good as they would have been had they had Earl Thomas. One thing about Elliott too is Elliott's not really that fast. I mean, he's kind of a slower safety, which isn't necessarily great when you play a lot of cover one. And I do suspect that we could see a very different defense. I mean, he ran 4.58, which for a safety isn't really. I mean, it's not really that great. I mean, it's not like a bad score by any means. Nothing bad. Chuck Clark also ran 4.54. But, for example, Earl Thomas, he ran a 4.43. So, that little speed at the end there, it does matter. And I do feel like it kind of shows in games like on this play. It's a cover one play. This time he is playing free, which I think he'll be doing a lot more of as he's getting thrust into the starting role. You have a receiver running a deep route towards the sideline. This is a common way to beat a cover one play because, you can't cover the whole field. It's just too big. But, one of the things about Earl Thomas is that he could cover so much that you still had to be careful on these types of routes. But, with Elliott here, watch how it just takes him a while to get over there. He's in the middle of the field, and once he realizes where it's going, he's really nowhere close, and, he eventually helps make the tackle. Knocked the ball out, actually was ruled incomplete, but the Bengals guy was like, hey man, I play for the Bengals, I don't get many touchdowns, just let me grab the ball and run into the end zone. But for Elliott, yes, he did come in, he did help make the play, but he got there very late. And Earl Thomas, there's a very real chance Earl Thomas is hitting him like a second after he makes the catch, as opposed to like 2 or 3 seconds after he made the catch. So again, he helped make the play. It actually looked like it was more the cornerback who made the play on that one. But also, that's kind of a point as well, is that this Baltimore Ravens team has great corners. Part of me does actually wonder if maybe you could even consider transitioning Jimmy Smith to be a safety instead of having Elliott. I could see him maybe just playing some safety snaps and kind of going a little positionless in the secondary to some degree. But at the same time, it appears as though Elliott's going to be, at least at the start of the season, their starting free safety. He was getting first team reps, so that's what I think is going to happen. So while Elliott is clearly no Earl Thomas, I think we all realize that Elliott is, a downgrade from Earl Thomas. That's why they were paying Earl Thomas $11 million a year. I still think that Elliott, he does one thing that I think could actually be better, and that's he can kind of play strong or free, whereas Earl Thomas was essentially just a free safety. That's kind of just what he did, and he did that very well, so it was fine. But I think that there could be some advantage in sort of having, now you can kind of change out, Clark or Elliott can both play strong or free, and that can kind of maybe open up the playbook a bit for Baltimore. And while I still think it's better to just have, an elite free safety than to have, two kind of, I think Clark's good. I think that Elliott's the total wild card. But watch, on this play, it's going to be a guard who's going to run out to block him. So you think, okay, guard against a safety. This should be, we shouldn't even have to worry about that block. But after the ball is snapped, you notice how the guard he's getting in position, and he's in pretty good position right now to try and make this play. Elliott realizes what's going on. He knows it's going to be a run to the bottom of the screen. But Elliott does a great job of reading and realizing this is going to be much further to the bottom of the screen than it looks. So I don't have to try and, eat this block. I can just try and get around it. And he's going to sidestep it, and he potentially could have gotten into the play on that one. Again, the play was made before he got there, so, he didn't have to worry about it. But it was still a good play by him to get around that block. And I think it shows some promise. And I think he could end up being a pretty good sort of, strong/free safety. So, yeah, that's kind of what I think about Elliott as a backup. Moving on to Earl Thomas and the decision to get rid of him, I don't love it. I'm going to be honest. I don't know all the details. It seems like the fight was sort of the last straw more so than it was, everything. It seems like maybe he was showing up late to meetings and stuff like that. But I don't know. I just think when you're contending for a Super Bowl, try to find a way to work it out. And maybe they thought they were trying to find a way to work it out, and it didn't happen. But I don't know, man. I think that when you have Earl Thomas and you have so much cap space, at least trade him. I think it looks like they're going to cut him. I think they did cut him. I haven't seen Schefter or Rappaport report it at the time that I'm making this video, so maybe it has happened. But there have been reports that he's been cut. But at the very least, he's probably going to get cut. And that's just a lot of money to get, a lot of dead cap to take. And I think there potentially could have been a way you work with it. Him getting cut right now, it kind of is $25 million in dead cap. The reason why I say kind of is that if it's considered, conduct detrimental to the team, it's only going to end up being $15 million in dead cap. So that's a $10 million difference, which is definitely significant. But at the same time, I don't know. I just think that potentially losing $25 million, I don't know if they're going to call this detrimental to the team. I don't know if a fight actually is considered that. Fights are actually pretty common in training camp. They happen. I would imagine there's probably 10 fights a year just among all of the training camps. They're not as uncommon as you might think. So I don't know. This is interesting. There's also a part of me that maybe wonders if he was having a really bad training camp and so they said, like, okay, this guy's washed up. Let's just try to, get out of the contract as much as we can. Use this as an excuse to save $10 million in dead cap. I don't know if that's true. I mean, especially because if they end up still having to pay the $25 million, they're ending up essentially saving $2 million, because his current contract is 3 years for $11 million a year, but there's an out after 2 years that would only be a $5 million dead cap. So basically, that would be $27 million, and you would get 2 years of him. So to me, I think it's a football thing. I think they trust Elliott. I think they trust Elliott to be a starter, and I think that Elliott has probably shown more potential in practice than he has on the field. From reports, they seem to like him. I believe they said he's a pretty good blitzer, which again, I have no evidence to back that up. So that it's all hearsay, it's all speculation. I can only talk about what I can see on tape. But it seems like they just like him better from what they've seen in practice than what we've seen on tape. And he has shown some good plays as well. I focus on a good amount of the negatives, but I only had 20, I only had 40 snaps to work with, so I did what I could. I think there's no doubt about it that he's going to be a downgrade from Thomas. But you know what? Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe he'll still be good. As for the Baltimore Ravens as a whole, I was saying that I think the Baltimore Ravens might be favorites to win the Super Bowl. My reasoning for it was because I thought that they were looking like they were in better position to get the number 1 seed in the AFC, and the number 1 seed means so much more this year with only one team getting a bye. But this is tough now. This makes me reconsider that a little bit. I still think Baltimore is great. I still think their secondary is great. I don't know. I have a podcast in a couple hours where I'm going to talk about it, so I guess I'll just tease that and say I'll have made my decision by then. I still have to figure out exactly what I want. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.